What's up, fantasy people? Happy Thursday to you. It's Nick Capozzi here. This is Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network, and I'm real jacked up today because I got an old buddy of mine coming on the show. He is, I don't want to say pinch hitting for Nick from Project Roto, because you're not a pinch hitter, man. You're a starter. Ryan Hodge of Project Roto. Must follow on Twitter at RotoHo. But what's up, buddy?
Nothing, man. Just ready to watch some football tonight. It's Thursday night games have been trash, but I think this one's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think so too, and we'll get into that. Also, we're going to talk a little daily fantasy, of course, with DraftKings, and then later in the show, last segment, we'll talk to Joe. Yeah, there you go, DraftKings, buddy. We'll talk to Joe Lisi from Go for the Two, give us some college lines for the week. But Rhino, okay, listen, I gotta tease you a little bit. When I was on tour, we rolled through Dallas, and it was actually one of the best shows we did. You were awesome, man. And you said Bernard Sankey or Bishop Sankey was a third rounder. Now, I'm not putting salt in the wound. Yeah, because I got a lot of those myself, a lot of bold predictions that didn't go well. Let me just ask you, because you were so high on him coming into the season. Is he a buy low by any stretch of the imagination right now for you? Or is it just a situation where it's like, yeah, let's wait for next year. Maybe he's a third rounder next year.
I think depending on the league, you could definitely look to buy him low. He shows so much patience, and he really waits for his blocks to be there, and then he shows such good burst. His elusive rating is fantastic, so I'm still excited about the guy. I'd like to see him get more touches.
I love when you drop words like elusive rating. That's awesome. That's why you got to follow him on Twitter at Project Roto. All right, listen, we're going to talk about the Thursday night game, but let me just shoot you some quick bits of news here off the cuff. So in New Orleans, PT and Kerry Robinson are not practicing. Mark Ingram, I liked him this year. Only 10 for 16 last week, but obviously he's going to get the majority of carries. You comfortable starting him this week if you got him?
Yeah, I think if I have him, he's a running back 2 and a high end flex at this point. Mostly just that total is huge in that game. I think it's like a 55-point total, so that's something that you're going to want to be chasing. The Saints have close to a 25.5 team total, so I'm comfortable starting him.
Yeah, absolutely. So am I. Running back by committee is the talk in Buffalo. If you got to gamble right now, which of those guys is going to lead the team in points by a running back rest of the season? Dixon or Bryce Brown?
I think Bryce Brown. I think Dixon is going to be the one that a lot of people spend their fab on, but I think Bryce Brown is going to be the player that emerges and people wish they would have, put the waiver in or their fab on.
And that's fair. And I actually made an argument this week. I said that, with Denard Robinson, Trey Mason, Bryce Brown, the guys were kind of buzzy for waiver wire pickups this week. I said I'd probably take Denard Robinson because of starting opportunity. But if I was 2-5 and swinging for the fences and I needed to connect and hit a home run, it's Bryce Brown that I'd go pick up. So I'm with you on that. He could be a star. I mean, he has that kind of upside. He's just his fingers are made of Crisco. So, all right. Oh, one more bit of news before we talk Thursday Night Football, because this kind of caught me off guard. Blast from the past, old school name here. Marcus Lattimore is practicing, or has been cleared to practice for the 49ers. Remember him out of South Carolina?
Yes, yeah.
Talk about him being a top 5 pick, but then his knees, he had a couple of horrific accidents. So just something to keep an eye on, because I don't know that we're going to see him this year, but in dynasty leagues, Marcus Lattimore, I don't know. Do you think he'll have anything left?
I don't. Honestly, I want to stay away from that offense right now. Unless it's Colin Kaepernick, I think he's the only guy that I'm starting. And if you have Michael Crabtree, you probably have to start him too. So Lattimore is somebody I think that you could stash and go from there if you're in a deeper league.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about the Thursday night game. The game tonight, San Diego at Denver. So, listen, I still think Denver's going to win tonight. But San Diego, I think, is going to go and play them tough. Obviously, it's a divisional game. They usually keep it pretty tight in Denver. But here's the real question. Is Julius Thomas going to get a touchdown? Shutout for the first time last week.
So this is where I'm super curious to see that too. He's kind of the guy who I have my eye on in a couple daily leagues. And, Peyton, if you follow me on Twitter, you follow some of the guys on Twitter, the narrative street thing where Manning likes to get the guy who didn't get anything last week. And that's going to be Julius Thomas this week. So it's totally anecdotal, and I think it'll be fun to watch. But, yeah, I think he finds pay dirt.
I'm jacked up for that game. All right. Ronnie Hillman, I wasn't crazy about him. I didn't pick him up 2 weeks ago because when he was playing the Jets 2 weeks ago, he only really started moving the ball when they were going to 2 tight end sets. And I just didn't see Denver going into that formation, scheming that way for him. Here's my question. He's been useful, obviously, and I'm not knocking the guy. But what happens when Monty Ball comes back?
I think that he slowly starts to eat into Ronnie Hillman's touches again. They still need to see what they have in him. And he showed flashes of that last year, and he showed flashes of it early again this year. He was like a top 15 running back through the first couple weeks. So it's hard to say that he was a bust. I think he was going like running back 8 on average depth.
Right.
But I think that he starts to eat into it, and I think that Ronnie Hillman, you're going to have a headache to wrap it up.
Would you sell high on him right now?
On Ronnie?
Yeah.
If I could, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know who's buying that, though.
Well, I think people are just, they have in their head that Monty Ball wasn't good, and you just made the argument why he wasn't that bad. So I think people might be thinking, look, Ball's not going to get back in the equation. Hillman's kind of looked sexy last couple weeks. So if you do get an opportunity, and actually, here's a guy I'd flip him for, a guy that I'm going to be watching tonight, Keenan Allen. And this is a guy that I don't have him on. I'm in like 49 million leagues, Ryan. I don't even know that because we did the tour.
32 and 32.
Brother. But Keenan Allen leads the team in targets, and I think that would surprise people. Now, he was going as a third rounder, and maybe got to the fourth round in a couple of these drafts. He was like a consensus by everybody third rounder. I don't have him on a single team. But the fact that he's leading the team in targets, and Antonio Gates, I don't know if you know this, has a bit of an injury history. I think I'm buying low on Keenan Allen right now. 10 targets last week. I like that.
I'm totally buying low on Keenan Allen. Antonio Gates has him out-targeted in the red zone, 6 to Keenan's 9. But like you said, Keenan is leading the team in targets. Over the past 4 weeks, he's got 35 targets. Like, it's insane. So he's got to start catching some of those balls. It's been bad. But I think he actually finds the end zone tonight due to the expected increase in volume that the Chargers will see just because they're going up against Denver. So I think he finds the end zone.
So make the trade today, people.
Yeah.
All right, real quick, like 15 seconds. Trey Mason real?
Yes.
Yeah, I liked him going into the season. I just worry about that running back by committee monster, and I've said it about 9 times this week. So I rewatched the whole Seattle St. Louis game. He was the only time he ate up yardage was when that offensive line was just making big holes. There was very little he actually created on his own. So something to keep in mind. All right, we're going to break. We'll be right back. Ryan Hodge from Project Roto. This is Razzball Radio Fantasy. Welcome back, Razzball Radio Fantasy Sports Network. I'm your host, Nick Capozzi, at Nick Capozzi, NickCapozzi on Twitter. He is Ryan Hodge of Project Roto. Follow him at Roto Hobo. Great follow, man. And not just when he's tweeting out about going rollerblading and getting slices of pizza.
Dude, those Old Spice commercials are the best.
I know. All right, here we go. So, especially then when someone comes back and calls you a hipster. Okay, so we're going to talk a little daily fantasy right now. Of course, you can always play at DraftKings with us every single week. Enter promo code Razzball and signing up at DraftKings. Get a first-time deposit match and a game, one of the weekly game entries. So, Ryan, you know daily fantasy as well as anyone I've ever had a conversation with. At least it hasn't won $1 million. Okay?
Thank you.
So you know your stuff. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to throw some names, some guys that I kind of like value-wise, and feel free to knock them down. Let's start at quarterback. So Aaron Rodgers, $9,000, most expensive quarterback this week at DraftKings versus New Orleans. I don't mind that matchup, but the value play that I see, just because right now Seattle looks discombobulated, tons of penalties. And I think that's when you see a team that's frustrated and losing control. The amount of penalties they had against St. Louis was crazy last week. Cam Newton, $6,600 at home versus Seattle. What do you think about that matchup?
I would have a hard time arguing against it. It looks like his legs are back, and Seattle is not Seattle of last year. And I think you had to expect, and I hate this word, some regression out of the defense, but I mean, they are like regressed to the max right now. They're allowing a ton of passing TDs. Yeah,
it's disappointing because they were one of the most fun teams. I like a good, tough defensive team. They had a lot of personality, and I kind of bummed out that they've taken a step back. But Cam Newton's the guy I think that I'd go after. Ben Roethlisberger, a little bit of value there, but that whole offense looks out of sync. But there wasn't really a lot of quarterback value I found this week. So let's move right to running back where there is a ton. Matt Forte, most expensive guy, $8,800 at New England. DeMarco Murray, only $8,600 versus Washington. I was kind of surprised by that because, I mean, I don't know, man. DeMarco at this point every week should just be the most expensive player. First value play that I like, Shane Vereen, $6,200 versus those same Bears that can't stop anybody. Like Vereen this week?
I do like I do like Vereen. I think if you're looking at that range, I'd actually go to Le'Veon Bell. He's sitting at $6,300,
Yep.
and I think it's the Colts are allowing like 24 fantasy points versus opposing running backs, and they're in the bottom like 24th, I think, or 25th in rush defense according to Pro Football Focus. So Vereen's a great pass catching running back on a full site like PPR, but so is Bell, and I think I'd go up the $100 to Bell.
All right. This one shocked me, and I was really surprised because I kept looking for LaShawn McCoy. Where's Shady? Where's Shady? Where's Shady? $1,500 at Arizona. Here's the thing: Arizona's not been great at stopping the run. Their secondary is very good, but at $1,500, that's value to me, even though they're playing in Phoenix. What do you think?
Um, I like it. I think for $5,800, you have to exploit that price point. You're getting an elite running back at running back $2 value essentially. So it's just once again full point PPR projection or a site like DraftKings. And then I saw something about Sproles may he's been limited in practice, so monitor that closely. But I think that only bodes well for McCoy.
All right, Ben Tate, $4,600 at home versus Oakland. Kind of interesting if I'm spending my money somewhere else, only because I think that, and I was surprised. Mike Pettine's been giving him the ball, even though West and Crowell kind of led that team. But the offense has been sputtering a bit. I think that they actually, you know what I said this week? I said that I think there's a chance we might see Johnny Manziel at some point this week or next. And I think he might not be bad when he does come out. Last point is that you got to pick him up now if you need a quarterback. Kind of going off topic here a little bit, but I like that Cleveland team a lot. And I think right now what they need is someone to come in there and just kind of control the joystick and put up the points. So, I don't know. Trey Mason, $4,400 at Kansas City. You like that one?
Nah, well, yeah, I mean, a little bit. I don't think that they're going to let Austin Davis throw as much as they have been, and I think that they want to see what they have there. So I'd look into that for sure. It's not how much you say it was, 4,400?
Yeah.
I would look more like around the Reggie Bush area for $4,400 versus Atlanta. If Reggie Bush is good to go, monitor his health the rest of the week, but I'd definitely look for Reggie Bush.
Yeah, actually, we'll get to Atlanta because their pass defense has been crud. So let's talk wide receivers. Antonio Brown, most expensive guy, $8,000 versus Indy right now. I mean, he looks like the best wide receiver in football. But speaking of Atlanta, Golden Tate, $6,500 at Atlanta. I mean, that's almost a must start for me because I think Atlanta has the fourth worst pass defense in football right now.
Yeah, I actually haven't broken down a ton of that game, so I don't know what their the team total is looking at for them. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard to get off of a guy like that. If you're going for the millionaire maker, he's probably going to have a high ownership percentage. But it's definitely a good play.
All right, here's another one that I really like, and just because of all the fallout from the Chicago Bears and Brandon Marshall. I got a feeling he's going to have a monster game, even though he's going up to Boston, $6,100. Love that matchup. What do you think?
It's one of the guys that I had highlighted at $6,100, and I think Alshon's at $6,000.
Yeah.
So even like Jay Cutler as a cash game play this week too, I think you can always target that offense. So absolutely, if you want to go like super bottom of the barrel, I think you should look at Devontae Adams. Really high team total for Green Bay, I think close to 27 points. And then he saw 80% of the snaps last week, even with Boykin back. So he's $3,500. It's almost near the minimum. So
yeah, and you know what I like about Adams? He's really great after the catch. I mean, if you go back and watch some of his highlights, I mean, he's really good at getting by that first defender once he's got the ball in his hands, and that's what you want in a wide receiver. I'll throw out one last wide receivers and some quick tight ends. Terrence Williams, $4,700 versus Washington. He's had a knack for the end zone this year. Okay, tight end. Julius Thomas, $6,200 versus San Diego. He's a must start. He leads the league in touchdowns. You have to start him, whether it's a tight end or flex. Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely. If you're getting in on tonight's action, 100% yes, he should be the first guy you put into your lineup.
All right, and then last guy, because we're out of time, unfortunately. Charles Clay, $3,500 versus Jacksonville, worst pass defense of football.
I would look to Zach Ertz at $300 cheaper.
Ooh, interesting. I like that. He is Ryan Hodge from Project Road. You got to check those guys out. They do good stuff at RotoHobo on Twitter. Follow this guy. Ryan, man, thanks for joining us today, buddy. Love having you on, man. Love talking football with you.
My pleasure, dude. I'll see you on the next time around. All right.
Absolutely. All right, this is Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. We'll be back with Joe Lisi from GoForThe2.com. Talk a little college football. Welcome back, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Every Thursday, it's my pleasure to be joined by Joseph Lisi of GoForThe2. It's the number2.com. That's also you can follow him on Twitter. He is our college football expert. So guess what we're going to talk about? A little college football. How you doing, Joe?
How are you, Nick? This is great. It's Thursday. You know I love talking about college football. Interesting week number 8, week number 9, shaping up to be a great week as well.
Yeah, let's talk about the first matchup. So Mississippi State, number 1 in the nation, 6-0. A lot of props to Coach Dan Mullen for turning what's been an average program into one of the best right now. Holy cow. So they go to Kentucky, take on the 5-2 Wildcats in Lexington. Let me just ask you, can they keep this up?
They can. You look at what Dan Mullen has done there. He's built a team with a very physical offense and defensive lines, and he's got an experienced quarterback in Dak Prescott, 14 touchdowns, 4 INTs, added another 8 touchdowns on the ground. He's a dynamic quarterback, and they can keep up this momentum as they make a run for the SEC West title.
All right, so listen, let me throw this out there too. Forgot to mention, if you're watching Thursday Night Football, San Diego at Denver, or if you're watching football on Saturdays, go do it with my buddies at the Rec Room in San Francisco. If you're in San Francisco, go hang out there. See my buddy Todd. Tell him Nick from Razzball sent you. He'll take good care of you, our sports part of the day. All right, next up we have Ole Miss. What is it with Mississippi this year? Holy cow. Usually Ole Miss and Mississippi State are also ranked in the SEC, but not this year. Number 3 ranked Ole Miss, 7-0. What a defense. Taking on LSU, 24th in the nation, 6-2, 10.6 points per game for the Rebels. Wow. Did they do something to the water in Mississippi?
Well, this is a very dominant defense, 10.6 points per game, tops in the nation, Nick. You look at what they did last week at home in Oxford. They held Tennessee to 191 total yards, sacked Justin Worley 7 times, created 4 turnovers, and held Tennessee to 0 yards rushing on the afternoon. Just a dominant performance. They're going on the road to Baton Rouge. They're 2-3 overall over the last 5 matchups. They dropped their last 2 games in Baton Rouge by a total of 13 points. When you look at LSU, they're very physical as well, +7 in turnover margin, only giving up 156 passing yards per game. And you look at the 2 losses that LSU has had on the season. Nick Marshall for Auburn, Dak Prescott for Miss State. I like LSU in this matchup because Bo Wallace, not as mobile as those 2 quarterbacks. LSU gets the upset Saturday night in Baton Rouge.
Calling the upset. I got to tell you too, man. I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I was phoning Joe. I'm like, Joe, who do you like in this game? Joe, who do you like in this game? I cleaned up. I got killed on Sunday for football, but I cleaned up for college football on Saturday. So, by the way, if you play daily college fantasy, tweet him at GoForThe2 because he knows this guy's so plugged in on college. Hey, by the way, when can we hear you on Yahoo Sports Radio?
You can hear me every Tuesday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time to 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm on with host Ken Thompson from Legacy Stadium, live from the Palazzo.
Gotta love it. All right, Joe, next up, Alabama, 6-1, going to Knoxville, taking on the Volunteers, 3-4. Looks like a cakewalk for Bama here. Any chance, does Tennessee have a chance here, or is this going to be another steamroll for the Tide, the Tide, Crimson Tide, Roll Tide? You got messed up there.
Two things that go into this matchup. Alabama has not played well in 2 road games this year. 1 road game on the road in Oxford. They dropped that to Ole Miss, and then the following week had a very tough matchup in Fayetteville against Arkansas. They had to pull that game out 14-13. So that's a positive for Tennessee as they head into this matchup. This is a rivalry game, so keep that in mind. And offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin for Alabama was the former Tennessee head coach. The fans in Knoxville despise Lane Kiffin in every way, shape, or form. Look for Butch Jones to have this team up. This is Tennessee's season right now. If they win any other game this year, it is Alabama. I think they push Alabama to the limit, but in the end, Alabama wins by a field goal.
All right, West Virginia. Listen, moved into the top 25 last week after a real impressive showing. They are now 22nd in the nation, heading to Stillwater, taking on the Cowboys. Oklahoma State also 5-2. How do you see this one shaking out, Joe?
Well, Clint Rickett having a fantastic season for West Virginia. A dominant performance against Baylor last week in Morgantown. He's thrown for 2,525 yards, has a very explosive wide receiver in Kevin White, 69 receptions for 1,020 yards already through 7 games. But West Virginia has not beaten Oklahoma State in Stillwater since 1929. Couple the fact that West Virginia, Nick, is minus 11 in turnover margin. They're 123rd out of 125 1A teams in the country in turnover margin. That's a negative statistic as they move to Stillwater this weekend. I like Oklahoma State to get the victory at home.
Wow, interesting. Couple of big upset calls here for Joe. I like that. You know what I like too? You're not kind of like walking the line. You're bold with your predictions. All right, let's see what you think of USC. The 20th ranked Trojans go to Salt Lake City, taking on Utah, number 19. Cody Kessler needs to step up again for USC to have a shot in this game. At least that's how I'm looking at it. What do you think?
He's had a very productive season so far, 69%.
Oh, we lost Joe for a second? Oh, no. Oh, we lost you for a second there, Joe. I lost you after you were talking about Cody Kessler. Come back to me.
Yeah, he's having a fantastic season, Nick. When you look at it, 69% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, only 1 INT, but he's going to be facing a very dominant defensive front that has 33 sacks through 6 ball games. When you look at USC's offensive line, they've surrendered 16 sacks on the year already. That's the game plan for Utah. Can they get pressure on Cody Kessler? I think they can, and I think that playing in Utah is a very difficult place to play. I look for the Utes to get the victory on Saturday night. They've been able to create pressure, get pressure on Brett Hundley and Devin Garner, 2 mobile quarterbacks. Kessler's more of a pocket passer. I think they get the win on Saturday night.
And if you're wondering why Joe knows so much about this, Joe, I don't know what I was supposed to say. So I won't say which network, but Joe used to be the college football researcher for a major network. So that's why he's so plugged in. Joe, listen, man, I got to throw one more thing at you just before we wrap up, buddy. We're starting to talk. It's real early, but we're starting. Casual college football fans now going to be tuning in more. They want to see who might be available in the draft for their teams and for fantasy teams. Maybe next week you and I get together and do maybe 5-10 players to watch for the rest of the season. You down for that?
Of course. Anytime we talk about college football, whether it be or fantasy, I'm up for it. I love talking college football 24/7.
Yes, he does. He's Joe Lisi from GoForThe2.com. Thanks for joining us, Joe. We'll be back tomorrow with more fantasy goodness. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. See you on Friday.